Here's McInnes. Lucas comes out. McInnes for the tie. It's off. What did he say? It's over. It's over. Portland has won the championship. 109 to 107. They've gone wild in Portland. The baskets are down. The one on my left. Walton has had the jersey stripped off him. Walton and the Trailblazers trying to battle through the crowd to the locker room. A world championship for the Blazers.
Almost 50 years ago now, the Portland Trailblazers became NBA champions, coming back from 2-0 to win 4 straight games against the Philadelphia 76ers to win the 1977 NBA championship. The finals MVP leading the team to success, Blazers center and 6'11" redhead, Bill Walton.
I've never coached a better player, I've never coached a better competitor, and I've never coached a better person than Bill Walton.
Bill.
No. I really have nothing to say.
Aren't you happy?
It was a good game. It was a good game, and you know the 76ers are one of the best teams I've ever played against, and I'm real happy. And,
We're better.
I think so.
He may have seemed a little shy after the game, but he was not on the court. His 20 points and 23 rebounds in Game 6 helped the Blazers clinch the series-winning showdown. After the upset, even the Sixers coach called Walton the best player for a big man who ever played the game of basketball. Though he only spent 5 seasons in Portland and struggled with injuries in those years, Bill Walton is and always will be one of the most beloved Portland Trailblazers of all time. And his award-winning career as a sports broadcaster after his retirement from playing ball made him beloved to basketball fans around the country, too. Now, the Hall of Famer and Blazers legend is gone. Bill Walton died recently at the age of 71 after a long illness with cancer. And the loss is being felt deeply here in Oregon as Blazers fans and those whose lives he touched in Rip City and across the basketball world reflect on his legacy. I'm Jen Chavez, and this is The Evergreen, a podcast about the place you call home. Loyal Evergreen listeners might know that we originally planned to bring you stories from the class of 2025 this week. That is still coming your way next week, but we decided we wanted to make room to honor an Oregon icon. Today, memories of Bill Walton, who meant so many different things to so many different people. 2 of those people join me now, OPB journalists and resident Blazers fans, Andrew Theen and Tony Schick. Andrew and Tony, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
So I want to start off by asking, what are your first memories of Bill Walton? And Andrew, let's start with you.
You know, I don't think I remember basketball life without Bill Walton. You know, I'm 40 years old. I remember Bill Walton on the NBA on NBC from an early age with Steve Snapper Jones. They were just fixtures in our lives as basketball fans. His catchphrases, his zest for life, his larger-than-life personality. I mean, honestly, if you love basketball and you're of a certain age, Bill Walton was always there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't pick out a first memory, really. It's just all my life is always, as a Blazer fan, he's been kind of steeped in it. Some of my earliest memories of being aware of him are like going to games at the Memorial Coliseum when I was really young and just seeing his picture and him being kind of this mythical figure for a young Blazer fan. And then, you know, my dad, having seen him play, describing just what an incredible, clinical, and yet creative force he was on the court.
Yeah, and I mean, Andrew, you kind of mentioned this a minute ago, but before we get into talking about his basketball career, how would you all describe his personality?
He was just so big and larger than life. I mean, you mentioned his height, 6'11", but I think he was actually taller. Like historically, they said he was one of the rare big guys who'd like to say he was shorter than he actually was.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was. He was so full of energy. He was someone who for a sports fan who cared about things other than sports, he brought that to the broadcast. He would talk about the world. He would make references that would make you stop in your tracks. He was just such a creative and original person who it was just fun to watch him bring all of his interests to the world via TV, which is not really, when you're watching a sporting event, what you always get.
Mm-hmm.
He drew connections between basketball and so many other things, and basketball was like just an expression of creativity, the way that for him he crossed over into being a huge music fan, and he would always kind of draw comparisons between the two. And I think just like that interconnectedness of all these different things in life was something I remember about him.
Walton's NBA career began when he was drafted to the Blazers in 1974. Before that, he was a star of UCLA's college basketball team. After being drafted into the NBA, he spent 5 seasons with the Blazers before being traded to the then San Diego Clippers in '79. He's widely recognized as being the driving force behind the Blazers' first, and so far, only, NBA championship in 1977. In a documentary about that championship season, Walton talked about his experience and his relationship with his teammates as they competed that year.
And everything is going right for us, which obviously is not going to happen every game, but, when it does happen, it's just hard to explain, but everybody seems to be, on the same wavelength. It carries over into your everyday life, and sometimes, like when we were playing, like the Lakers in the playoffs this year, we were at a very high point for about 10 days straight, It just, everybody was, right in there together, and, it was not only, excellent basketball being played, it was excellent human relations, off the floor as well. I'm just, very glad that I could be a part of that.
Talk about connecting basketball with the rest of life there. Now, speaking for myself, I am a millennial, so I was not even alive during the Walton era of the team. But as we've kind of been talking about, he's remembered as an iconic Blazer, even by younger generations of fans like me who weren't around for his heyday in Portland. From this vantage point we have today, what stands out to y'all about Walton as a Portland Trailblazer?
I think I'd have to say it's just that team played this kind of perfect brand of basketball, and Walton was like the focal point, but it's really still talked about today in real basketball nerd circles as like one of the most perfect teams ever assembled, because they had the big man who was the focal point and moved the ball. They had the enforcer, they had the fast guards, they had the shooting. And I mean, what really stands out is, he was all about team basketball, and all of his comments about that era, they're all about the team. He named one of his kids after one of his teammates, Maurice Lucas. I mean, it's really kind of a beautiful thing. Like anyone who grew up playing sports of any kind, like the team aspect. I mean, you can't get much more team oriented than naming one of your children after one of your teammates. I mean, he was really just kind of a magical guy who cared about his teammates more than anything. Is what, again, as someone who didn't watch like you, Jen, I wasn't alive, but like just reading the history, seeing the documentaries, listening to him talk for decades, it was always team first.
The first thing I thought of was exactly that team was associated with like the platonic ideal of basketball, of just like complete fluid, all 5 people working together. I also not able to see him play. I'm about the same age as you guys, but talking to people who saw him play and watching old clips, like what you hear is like that he could do anything on the court, but just wanted to create this energy with all of his teammates where, he'd be coming down with a rebound, and like before he even hit the ground, he'd be turning and knowing what he wanted to do with it, and the guards would be flying up the court, and that's the kind of basketball that like everybody aspires to. Along those lines, that I think of him as a trailblazer is there was a tweet the other day from the always sharp comedian Ian Carmel, who said he might not be the best Blazer of all time, but he's definitely the most Blazer of all time. I think I don't think I'm bastardizing that tweet too much. And I think that's true because like he played in that era, and he in who he was, he was this hippie who played this incredible style of basketball, and he embodied so much about like the Blazers and Oregon and like the Blazers spirit. Like the Blazers have this, they're probably the only abstract art logo in sports that's meant to be like the 5 players working together. It's meant to signify that. And that's what he is. Like he is the spirit of the Blazers in many ways.
I did not know that about the logo.
Yeah, he's the human pinwheel, I guess, in some respects.
Exactly.
Yeah, the 2 different colors represent 5 players on each team working together as one.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that. Struggles with injuries led to Walton missing a lot of games during his time on the team. At one point, after playing on an injured foot, he accused the Blazers of improper medical advice and care. He went on to request a trade in the late 70s, and when that didn't happen, he sat his last season as a Blazer out entirely. And this was after the team's championship win, which cemented him as a beloved star of the team. But throughout his time with the Blazers, there were some fans that were skeptical of his injuries and felt he was just collecting a paycheck on the sidelines. Paul Knowles, the honorary mayor of Northeast Portland, remembers meeting Walton as he was struggling with some of this in his earlier years as a Blazer. His club ended up being a welcoming space for Walton in town.
And I met him at the Lloyd Center. He was walking through with his bicycle. And I know he was having a hard time because he wasn't playing because fans was angry at him. No one ever heard of a bone spur. And him being a hippie too, that just made it even worse. So I gave Bill my card and told him this is a spot you can hang out. We had a restaurant lounge called Geneva's Restaurant Lounge, and invited him to come over and he could hang out there if he needed a spot to hang. So one day my bartender called me back, said, she's a female. Paul, is a big, tall, redhead white man out here to see you. And I went out, and there was Bill Walton. So that became his hangout spot,
Walton himself reflected on some of his challenges during his time as a Blazer in the documentary Fast Break.
I don't have any regrets about the past couple of years. I think that, I'm, in a way, I'm kind of glad the way things worked out. That, taught me who my friends were, and, losing is as much a part of life as winning is.
That's the thing with Walton. He never shied away from reality. This man went through so much, so many surgeries. He was open about his mental health struggles and contemplating suicide at one point. I mean, he's been very, very open about who he was.
As he said, there's as much losing in life as there is winning. And there's a lot of pain in being a human, and there's a lot of pain in being a Blazers fan. And he was someone who always endured that pain and fought through it to find joy. And that's what I always think of with him. Yeah.
Coming up, Bill Walton is known and loved for so much more than his skills as a player. After a short break, we look back at his passions off the court, his time as a freewheeling sports broadcaster, and more. Stay with us. As I've been reading through all these remembrances of him that have popped up in the last few days since he died, it's notable to me how much of what people remember about him was kind of outside of his role as a player. What was he like off the court? How did he connect with people outside of just playing basketball?
Yeah, like when he came to a city, Bill Walton was everywhere. He somehow found time to go to what he said, 1,000 Grateful Dead shows.
Really?
He really made friends apparently all over the place. And one of those friends that he made was David Halberstam, who was a late journalist who died in a car crash a long time ago, but wrote a really incredible book about the Blazers, the breaks of the game. This is just an indication of Walton's path in life. We reached out to Halberstam's daughter, Julia Halberstam, and she had a Walton memory to share too.
When I was about 12, 13, for a few summers, I was just getting into music. My dad, was older when I was born, and he was sort of the Dave Brubeck, Count Basie era, incredibly uncool to me at the time. I was getting into the Grateful Dead. And my dad and Bill and he took us backstage at a couple of Dead shows. And I just remember, he was so tall, being in the pit and then backstage later and looking, and, my dad didn't quite know how to act or stand. And I was sort of intermittently mortified, but also in retrospect, really touched. These were two people really of two different generations who, found this bridge. And I just remember them smiling at each other. And it was just, there's a real sweetness to the friendship, a real mutual admiration.
Yeah, so if you were in Bill Walton's life, it appeared at any point, you were in there for the long haul, and he would be there with you.
I think his life outside of basketball became as known as his life on the court. The way I summed it up to Andrew the other day was like, my dad was really sad when he passed because my dad is a lifelong Blazers fan. Mm-hmm. My father-in-law isn't from Portland, isn't a Blazers fan, was also really sad when Bill Walton died because, as he said, the world lost its tallest and one of its preeminent deadheads. That just shows you the breadth of people that Bill Walton touched with his energy.
And obviously he was known for a lot of things besides his playing as a Deadhead, of course, also as a cyclist. He was constantly riding his bike around, and also as an activist for multiple causes, particularly in the 70s and 80s. How was political activism part of his life during his career?
He was involved in the American Indian movement and very supportive of that, to the point that the FBI had a file on him. We have a clip here of one of his teammates from the Boston Celtics, Danny Ainge, former Blazer as well, who recalls the commitment that Bill Walton had to some of his causes.
We're playing pickup ball in the open gym, and we're getting ready for this season, and we are pumped up. Like, we've just lost to the Lakers in the NBA Finals in '85, and we feel like we're a better team, and we're adding Bill Walton to the team, and everybody is really jacked up. And Walton, in this pregame practice, he says, "I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to be gone for the next 3 or 4 days." It was like, "What do you mean you're going to be gone? Like, we're getting ready for the season." He says, "I got to go to South Dakota for an Indian reservation sit-in." And we were just like, "What? What are you talking about?" He had to go protest some Indian reservation sit-in. And so we missed him for a few days.
And that's in the mid-'80s. But if you go back earlier, when he was at UCLA, Walton was arrested protesting the Vietnam War. And, he was a counterculture guy. And the timing of it was kind of interesting. And he was in the 70s, and he kind of came after some of the giants of American sports who were politically active, black men like Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And Walton was pretty open later in life about the fact that, as a white man, I think he was able to get away with a little bit more during his time in the NBA in the 70s of being so politically active. But from what I know from reading, historical archives and whatnot, he was not it was not well received in Portland at the time either. But winning a championship kind of cured some of those woes, I think.
Okay, so after his retirement from the NBA in the 1980s, he started a second career as an Emmy-winning sports broadcaster, serving as a color commentator and studio analyst. And I think this is where maybe we might have some more memories from our actual lives of him. He became known to another generation of basketball fans for his unique on-air style and banter. How do y'all remember him as a voice and personality on broadcasts?
One of my favorite memories involving Bill Walton was 2002 playoff game against the Lakers when, in the eyes of Blazer fans, the refereeing was not exactly fair. And in the eyes of the Blazer players, it also was not fair. And Rasheed Wallace got called for a foul the Blazers didn't agree with. Scottie Pippen ended up chucking the ball into the stands in protest, getting a technical foul and ejected. And before the game, there was a commemoration of the 1977 championship team, and stuffed Bill Walton dolls were passed out to everyone. They were like Bill Walton Beanie Babies almost.
They were.
And,
I saw them.
and the fans, inspired by Pippen's protest and perhaps by Bill Walton's protesting spirit, began lobbing Bill Walton dolls onto the court. And I was there in row K, section 118, seeing flying Bill Walton dolls over my head onto the court.
Did you throw your own Bill Walton doll?
There were dolls flying from my section. It's not important who was throwing them.
All right, fair.
And I didn't even realize until after the fact, Bill Walton was on the broadcast of that game.
There it is. That's an amazing likeness. I wish I looked that good, Marv, but that beard, I don't know, that is the only beard in the history of Western civilization to have made Bob Dylan's beard look good.
That's his reaction to seeing his likeness on the court.
Oh, man. I love that clip that he says in the history of Western civilization, because that is such a Walton clip right there. He lived in hyperbole, which I personally love, and I know some people it was maybe a little off-putting, but I mean, this is a guy who would talk about a fascinating book he read from Timothy Egan mid-broadcast, just go on a rant about the Dust Bowl. He would talk about wine or cheese or, he would talk about anything under the sun. Here's how he described the amazing Dwayne Wade of the Miami Heat.
And that is how talented this brilliant performer is, and just really getting started. And you look at his body, Dwayne Wade, it's as if Michelangelo sculpted it in a dream.
Oh my God. That is, just the artistic flourish there. Yes, I love it.
He actually goes on to be a little more graphic in his descriptions of Dwayne Wade's physique in ways that you would not typically hear a broadcaster do. And that was him. He would go places that other broadcasters weren't. Earlier in his broadcast career, he was not the kind of never-ending font of positivity and joy and optimism that he became. He was pretty incisive and was willing to be negative and criticize players and coaches more than a lot of other broadcasters were. And he was, willing to be controversial. He was not always beloved as a broadcaster in those days. And then he started to become more of like a philosopher on the mic and more of what we kind of remember now, I think.
Yeah, and I think we have another clip of him that I think kind of reflects what you're talking about during a broadcast, talking about his opinion on the war on drugs.
You know how I talk every week and complain about the NCAA not modernizing the rules? That's another rule they got to modernize. And this whole war on drugs has been an absolute failure across the board. And somebody's got to step forward, and we're looking for Obama to step up and say, why are we punishing people for things that are legal? Why are people languishing in jail for things that are legal?
Yeah, so I think that gets to him as a philosopher, not afraid to be a little controversial on broadcasts. In the past week, since the news of Bill Walton's death, how are people here in Portland or across the state of Oregon reacting? What do you think he meant to people here?
There's been an outpouring of, people remembering him. And what I've found pretty interesting, and I think this speaks to what Andrew was saying, is like once you're in his life, you're in his life, is the number of people who have specific Bill Walton stories, like people who are sharing photos of Bill Walton, like, oh, I went bike riding with Bill Walton, or I he did this for my family or something. Not just people sharing, their memories of him on the court or observing him, but the number of people whose lives he actually touched in Oregon it started to become clear just on Twitter and other social medias of people who are sharing actual memories of him. One of those people I talked to Paul Knowles, who we heard from earlier, Blazers super fan and the honorary mayor of Northeast Portland, who's dear friends with Bill, and they would get together whenever Walton was back in Portland. And Knowles shared a memory with us of when he went down to Powell's for a Bill Walton book signing to get a book signed for his friend.
And I thought, man, I can't stay down here all day getting a book signed. So I went up and asked him if I could. A lady asked, "Is you're in charge of the line?" She said, "If I tell you a story about Bill Walton, would you mind let me in the line to get a book?" And she said, "What's your story?" And about that time, Bill looked over and saw me. "Paul Knowles, what's happening?" I said, "Hey, Bill, how you doing?" He said, "What you doing here?" I said, "Well, I came to get a book for John Hayes." He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about this guy. This is Paul Knowles. He's a super fan. He got a front row seat."
And so I was at that book signing in 2016, and I watched this whole interaction that Paul was talking about. I took a picture of it. I knew who Paul Knowles was, and so I could tell the familiarity and the joy in their interaction. And, just to kind of channel Bill Walton, I waited for hours in this line. I waited for hours to get this signature. But, it was a good turnout. People wanted to show up. That was in 2016. But, in the wake of his death, it really has been kind of amazing. People, when someone who is beloved dies, you really kind of feel it in the aftermath. And Walton was a guy who really, he belonged to Oregon and Portland in so many respects. He was a UCLA Bruin, but he knew so much about Oregon and Oregon State and the geography of the state and the rivers and the counties. And he really cared about this place. And it was a beautiful thing.
And in your own lives as basketball fans, as Oregonians, what are your favorite memories of him? What will you remember most about him?
I'm going to remember, throw it down, big man, throw it down. Some of the best Waltonisms. I'm going to remember the joy. I'm going to remember that you just showing up with a smile on your face can really be a good thing. This was a guy who brought so much joy to so many people. And I'm going to put on a tie-dye shirt this summer and honor Bill Walton.
Hell yeah. What about you, Tony?
I can't say it better than that. Andrew Theen, one of the great podcasters of our time.
Yes.
Incredible podcast performance. I am the luckiest guy in the world to be able to sit here next to both of you talking about Bill Walton. And that is that's my best effort at channeling Bill Walton.
Well, Andrew and Tony, thank you so much for remembering Bill Walton with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew Theen is OPB's politics and government editor, and Tony Schick is an investigative editor and reporter for OPB. And all three of us are OPB Blazers fans. Thank you for listening to The Evergreen, a podcast about the place you call home. Join us next week for stories from OPB's class of 2025, a group of Oregon students that we've been following since kindergarten on their path towards high school graduation. And we have more coming for you soon from our At Work With series, where we ask Pacific Northwesterners your questions about what it's like to do what they do. This month, we're headed to the Oregon coast to interview someone who makes candy for a living from a family that's been hand-making saltwater taffy and other sweet treats for decades. So tap into that sweet tooth and send us your questions for Candy Maker at theevergreen@opb.org or through our show page at opb.org/theevergreen. If you're here listening right now, you are a part of our new podcast family. Help us grow by leaving a review on your favorite podcast app. Follow us there, and hey, tell your friends. This episode was produced by yours truly. Our technical director and fellow Blazers fan is Stephen Cray. He engineered this episode. The OPB podcast team also includes Mia Estrada, Julie Sabatier, and Sage Van Wing. Andrew Theen and Tony Schick did the interviews you heard with Paul Knowles and Julia Halberstam. The music in this episode is from Audio Network. And you heard additional footage from ESPN, NBC, CBS, and the 1978 documentary Fast Break. If you have a question or comment for us about basketball or anything else we do, please reach out. Our email address again is theevergreen@opb.org. I'm Jen Chavez. Rip City, baby. Catch you later.